The cereal bowl hits the tile and shatters into a million pieces at my feet. My entire body freezes, which is good because that means my bladder is frozen too. If it wasn't, I'd probably piss myself right here and now. My ears strain for any signs that I've been heard. But after a couple of minutes go by and no servant comes into the kitchen with a shotgun, I relax a bit. The old lady said they didn't have staff, but you just never know. Then I glance down at the shattered bowl at my feet. Why don't rich people use plastic cereal bowls like the rest of us, huh? I guess maybe it isn't a cereal bowl. Could be a soup bowl. Or some special bowl for desserts only, where if you put salad or something else in there, you go straight to hell. But if it's a dessert bowl, then it's really like an ice cream bowl. And ice cream bowls should be plastic too, for fuck's sake. The rich, they live different lives. I'm planning on changing that. For me, I want a different life too. A rich life. That's why I'm here. By the dim light coming into the kitchen from the security lamp sitting out by the driveway, I take a look at my notes for the 16th time. Third cupboard from the right, closest to the refrigerator. Top shelf, old mug with the dog on it. Behind that, code 7879710. I study the kitchen and all its amenities. A gas stove with like 12 burners and a griddle. A gajillion copper pots and pans hanging all over an island with a marble top worth more than my Impala. The fridge doors match the cupboard doors, so it takes me a while to track the thing down. I'd spent 20 minutes going from room to room, making sure I was actually in the kitchen before I realized the fridge was camouflaged. Again, rich people. Why do they hide their fridges? Are they afraid someone will break in, crack their safe, then make a fucking charcuterie board to go? What the actual fuck? But I have found the fridge and not gotten caught after breaking a bowl. So far the night is working out for me. I see the third cupboard from the right, closest to the fridge, and stare up at it. Top shelf, huh? Well, I can climb up onto the counter, or I can try to find a step stool because my 5'8" frame ain't gonna reach that shelf without a little help. It doesn't take me long to realize I can spend the rest of the night looking for a step stool in a stranger's house. So I place my palms on the counter and boost myself up. I don't need to stand on the counter, luckily. I can reach the top shelf of the cupboard by being on my knees. Now, the only problem is getting the cupboard open without knocking myself off the counter. I probably should have opened it before hopping up. There's very little wiggle room, but I find just enough to scooch back and be able to swing the cupboard open. Mugs. The whole entire cupboard is filled with mugs. Coffee mugs, tea mugs with lids, to-go mugs, copper mugs, elegant pottery and cheap plain white ceramic. If it comes in mug form, these rich fuckers apparently have a version. And the top shelf is the worst, glass mugs. Considering my track record so far, I'm not happy to see so much breakable shit in one cupboard. But slowly, carefully, and with so much concentration that I give myself a headache, I managed to get almost all of the mugs down from the top shelf and onto the counter without dropping a single one. Then there it is, the mug with a dog's face etched into it. Under the face is the name Daisy. I shove it aside, and behind it is really what I'm looking for. The keypad. I reach into the cupboard, double-check my note for the 17th time, and type in the code. Nothing happens. I read the note. I type the code. Nothing happens. What the fuck? I mutter. 7879710. I type again. Still nothing. I stab my finger at the keypad, thinking maybe brute force or intimidation will work. It doesn't. My frustration is building, and that's not great. Nothing good comes from me getting frustrated. I have a couple of mugshots to prove it. Okay, I say to myself, and my voice sounds strange in the deserted kitchen. I read my note. I'd look at the keypad. I read my note again. I look at the keypad. Then I try to think back at what the old woman told me. The old, dead woman, that is. All right, so I may have mentioned that I've had a couple run-ins with the law. Yeah, it's true. Nothing major. A little shoplifting here, some petty theft there. I might have driven off without paying for gas once or twice, or 6 times. There could even be a record of a drunken disorderly charge. Then there's the little thing that may have involved me, an underage girl I could have sworn was 18, an overaged woman I could have sworn was 18, a horse trailer, and 7 or 8 llamas. All in all, I have spent about 14 months in the county jail spread over 6 years, not counting a couple stints in juvie. No prison time, luckily. It helps to be related to the public defender. Cousins take care of each other. Which is how I ended up kneeling on a counter in some mini mansion, trying not to fling every goddamn mug in front of my face across the kitchen because the goddamn code won't work. You see, after the llama incident, and after the underage girl's parents didn't press charges because they knew who their daughter was, and the overage woman went back to her husband and 3 kids, I was given a choice. Work the county morgue's night shift 6 nights a week for the next 3 years, or go upstate for a very long time. I asked my cousin if I could think about it for a day or so, and he just shook his head, looked up at the judge who'd pretty much had it with me, and said, "He'll take the deal, Your Honor. When does he start?" I wasn't exactly thrilled with my cousin for making that choice for me. I mean, sure, I didn't want to go to prison. Who does want to go to prison? No one is the answer. No one wants to go to prison. But then there's the whole working in a morgue in the middle of the night part. I'm not a chicken shit. I can watch horror movies over and over. If I hear a noise at night, I don't give a shit. Do you know why? Because I'm asleep at night, which was half the problem with the morgue scenario. I like my sleep. Your Honor, if I could think about it, I started to say, but the gavel was already on its way down for a hard whack. After the echoes of the banging gavel had gone quiet, the judge leaned out across his bench and dead-eyed me like I'd never been dead-eyed before. And that's saying something, because people all my life have been dead-eyeing me. "Son, you are a fuck-up," the judge said. No one in the courtroom snickered at the profanity. We all knew whose courtroom we were in. Judge Elias Hortenstein's. That's whose. "How many times have you been before this bench, Mr. Harmon?" Judge Hortenstein asked. I shrugged, and he banged the gavel twice. "I asked you a question, son," the judge snarled at me. "I'll repeat it, in case you're just hard of hearing and not a complete and total imbecile." "I heard you, Your Honor," I said after my cousin nudged me with his elbow. "Good for you, but let me repeat it anyway," the judge said. "How many times have you been before this bench, Mr. Harmon?" I did a little mental math and replied, 6 times, Your Honor." "No!" he shouted, and I swear he almost threw that gavel at me. 11! 11 times! I glanced at my cousin, and he nodded. "Really?" I asked, leaning in close to my cousin like I had whispered that word, even though I hadn't. "And that's just since you turned 18, which was about 6 years ago," the judge shouted. "Counselor, remind your client about his idiocy, please." "You're forgetting the diamond dashes at the buffet last year," he said. "Oh, right," I said. I straightened up and smiled at the judge. "Forgot about the chuck wagon, Your Honor." "Well, you won't forget working in the morgue, I can say that for sure," the judge said, and gave his gavel a hard whack. 6 nights a week with the weekly schedule determined by the supervising coroner. You report tomorrow night at 9 p.m. on the dot. You will not be a second late, Mr. Harmon, or I will send you upstate without shedding a single tear over it." "In my defense, Your Honor," I started to say, but was drowned out by the banging of his gavel. "Tomorrow night," the judge shouted at me. 9 p.m. sharp, or you go to prison. Am I understood, Mr. Harmon?" "Yes, Your Honor," I said. My cousin elbowed me again. Thank you." "Get the fuck out of my courtroom," the judge snarled. then waved his gavel at the bailiff.
Tully, bring me the next case. Please, let it be something less frustrating, like a good old-fashioned murder or DUI or arson. Do we have an arson case? No, Your Honor. Prostitution is up next,
Tully said. The judge shrugged and glared at me while 2 deputies walked my way.
I'll take prostitution. Better than this sad sack of shit,
the judge said, as I was escorted out of the courtroom by 2 sheriff's deputies and taken half a building away to the county jail, where I was processed, released on my own, and expected to report back to the same building the next night at precisely 9 p.m., not a second later. I was 15 minutes late. But, hey, turns out the supervising coroner sniffs formaldehyde, and I just happened to walk on him with a dope-soaked rag to his face. So, while he noticed I was 15 minutes late and could have told the judge, we mutually decided that he'd let my tardiness go, and I'd let his drug habit go.
Connor,
the guy said, offering me his hand. The hand with the formaldehyde-soaked rag in it. He dropped that to the floor, wiped his hand on his scrubs, and offered the hand again.
Connor?
I asked as I shook his hand. He nodded.
Connor the coroner?
I asked, trying not to laugh.
And you are Pete the fuck-up,
Connor said.
It doesn't rhyme, but it has a ring to it. Do you want me to call you Pete the fuck-up?
No, I said, a little annoyed that he thought that was an option.
Then don't call me Connor the coroner,
he said. He picked up the rag and stuffed it in the front pocket of his scrubs. Then he walked over to a small desk that sat outside a set of double doors. There was a blue bundle there, and Connor threw the blue bundle at me.
Change into these,
he said. I caught the bundle and frowned down at it.
I'm not a doctor or a nurse or anything,
I said as I stared at the set of scrubs he'd tossed me.
That doesn't matter,
he said, and plopped down into the folding chair behind the desk.
Everyone wears scrubs. Do I have to?
I asked.
Can't I just wear what I have on?
I looked down at my jeans and t-shirt. The jeans were an old pair, and the t-shirt had the words "Obnoxious AF" on it. It was a birthday gift from my grandma.
Do you know where you are?
Connor asked.
Do you know where you are?
I mocked and aimed my chin at the rag-made bulge in his pocket.
Fuck you,
Connor said, then sneered.
And while the t-shirt may be an accurate uniform for you, you are now working in the county morgue. That means you will be dealing with dead bodies, and dead bodies tend to leak fluids. A lot of fluids.
I looked down at the scrubs, up at the double doors, down at the scrubs, then over at Connor.
I thought you drained the bodies of all the blood and shit,
I said.
What fluids do they have left? This is a morgue, not a funeral home,
Connor said.
You're thinking of embalming, and we don't do that here. What we do here is we take in the bodies, help determine the cause of death, maybe do an autopsy if it's warranted, or if the family requests it. Then once everything is on the up and up, that's when we send the body to Jones's funeral home, and they take it from there. You don't always do an autopsy?
I asked.
I thought that was the law. Stop believing television,
Connor said, then stabbed a finger out at me.
And put your fucking scrubs on. I want to get you through your orientation and then not talk to you the rest of the night. The sooner you are dressed, the sooner I don't have to deal with you anymore.
I may be an obnoxious asshole, but Connor's a real dick. I'll just put that out there right now.
Fine,
I said, and held up the scrubs.
Where's the restroom? That door there,
Connor said, and pointed past me. I looked over my shoulder and saw a single door with all the bathroom symbols on the wall next to it, including a shower symbol. And that was a great sign to see. My water had been shut off the day before the whole llama thing, so knowing there was a shower at work was awesome.
Dude!
Connor snapped.
Scrubs, now!
I went and got changed. There was a set of lockers in the restroom too, so I stuffed my clothes in there after getting dressed in the scrubs. Of course, I went through all the other lockers, but there wasn't much in there. Connor had his clothes and shoes in a locker, which made me wonder if I needed different shoes too. That was all. He must have had his phone and wallet on him, His car keys, too. The rest of the lockers were empty. When I returned to the desk, Connor was scrolling on his phone and laughing at something.
Fucking cats, man,
he said, and tucked his phone into his breast pocket, then stood up.
All right, loser, let's get this over with. I have somewhere to be in about 3 hours. Somewhere to be?
I asked.
Aren't you supposed to be here all night with me?
Aren't you supposed to be here all night with me?
He mocked in a whiny voice that sounded way worse than my voice had when I mocked him.
I'll be where I'll be when I am there. Got it?
I shook my head.
No, that's really confusing.
He sighed.
You will stay here all night. If anyone asks, I was here all night too. Do you see now how this works? What if a body comes in?
I asked.
That's what I'm about to show you.
He snapped.
Jesus, Pete. Did one of those llamas kick you in the head or something? You heard about that?
I asked.
Everyone heard about it,
Connor said.
You were caught with a naked 16-year-old and a naked 37-year-old at a truck stop trying to sell stolen llamas. The story made the rounds. I thought she was 18,
I said.
Well, she was obviously 16,
Connor said.
I mean the other chick,
I said. Connor stared at me for a long while, then shook his head, turned, and walked through the double doors.
Come on!
He shouted when I failed to join him. Okay, so here is where I admit something. Dead bodies freak me out a little. Or a lot. Yeah, more like that. They freak me out a lot. When I was 8, I walked into the garage. It was summer break and the garage was like really hot. It was even hotter because my mom's station wagon was running. Man, it stank in there. I started coughing right away, waving my hand around to get the fumes out of my face. Even though I was 8, I managed to get the garage door open. It was a manual and didn't have an automatic opener because my dad was too cheap to buy one. That's what my mom said, at least. So, I was huffing and puffing to get the garage door open and almost passed out. Actually, I think I did pass out for a few seconds, because the next thing I remember is our across-the-street neighbor, Mr. Huffman, shaking me by the shoulder. I was on the concrete and my lungs and head kinda hurt.
Where's your mama?
He asked. I shrugged as I slowly sat up. The old man looked past me and then hurried by. I heard him gasp and start saying,
Oh Lord! Oh heavens! Oh Lord!
over and over. I mean, the garage stank, but not that bad. When the police and paramedics got there, they wrapped me in blankets and set me on the edge of one of the ambulances until my dad arrived. He cried and screamed and yelled, and then collapsed onto the driveway as 4 gurneys were wheeled away to 3 other ambulances that had shown up. All of the gurneys had sheets pulled up over them. Once they were loaded up and the ambulances were gone, the sheriff helped my dad to his feet, then handed him a piece of paper. My dad read it, shook his head, read it again, then looked over at me. I waved. My lungs and head were feeling a lot better, and one of the paramedics had given me a Capri Sun. It was watermelon, which was my second favorite flavor. My dad folded up that paper and put it in his pocket, then walked over to me to tell me that my mom and my 3 sisters were dead. I didn't know how to handle that, so I just shrugged and looked at the garage. Can I have a popsicle? I asked, as I threw the empty Capri Sun down onto the street.
A popsicle?
My dad asked. Yeah, I said and pointed at the garage. I was going to get a popsicle from the freezer, but I didn't get one. Can I have one now?
Your mother and sisters are dead, and you want a popsicle?
He asked me. Yeah, I replied and nodded. Grape. Grape was my first favorite flavor of anything.
Jesus Christ, Peter,
my dad said and rubbed his face.
What is wrong with you?
I shrugged.
Let's get you inside,
my dad said and reached for me. I jerked away. I don't want to go inside. I want a popsicle, I said. A grape popsicle.
Kids process things differently,
a paramedic said, and my dad laughed.
No, this is Peter,
he said and laughed again.
Jesus himself could come down, and he'd still want a popsicle.
Grape, I said.
He's in shock.
The paramedic said.
No, he's just a little asshole.
Dad said. Then he pulled the paper out of his pocket.
Do you know what my wife wrote?
He asked the paramedic. A couple of other paramedics started to get closer. The same with some sheriff's deputies. I didn't blame them. My dad sounded weird and was kind of freaking out. Even 8-year-old me could see that.
I'll read it to you,
my dad said, and then he did. He read that note in front of everyone.
Dear Jasper,
my dad read.
I am sorry to do this to you, but I can't be here anymore. I've tried to tell you so many times, but you wouldn't listen. The world is a cruel place, and you are one of the crueler parts of it. So I am leaving you forever, and I am taking our girls with me. There is no way I'll let them be part of this cruelty. There is no way I'll let you raise them to be just 3 more stupid women in this cruel world. That is not going to happen. So I am ending it for all of us.
He stopped reading and looked up at me. Then he continued.
But Peter is an asshole, so you can have him. The 2 of you deserve each other. Good luck in hell, fuckers, because I know neither of you will reach us here in heaven. Even if the boy's name is Peter, he won't be getting through the pearly gates. I know it and you know it. Yours truly, Misty. Fucking hell,
one of the deputies said and walked off.
Oh,
the paramedic who had argued with my dad said.
I see.
Can I have my grape popsicle now? I asked. My dad pointed at me, then dropped the paper and walked off. I watched him cross over overgrown lawn to our front door. He paused for a second, but didn't look back. Then he opened the front door and walked inside our house. The paramedic took the blanket off me and helped me down onto the street. He looked me up and down and tried to smile. Then he walked me up to my porch.
My partner gave your dad a list of resources,
he said to me.
They'll help with the grief.
Then he handed me his card.
But call me if you ever need to talk to someone, all right?
Okay, I said and took the card. Can I have my grape popsicle now? I'm pretty sure the guy ended up changing his phone number after the 12th or 13th time I called him to ask if I could ride in the ambulance with the siren on. So, after all that, dead bodies aren't my thing. I do like grape popsicles, though. I mean, who doesn't? Although, I never did get one that night.
Peter!
Connor shouted.
Pull your head out of your ass and get in here now, or I'm calling the fucking judge.
A debate raged in my head. It was a genuine debate. Go to prison or see dead bodies.
You're looking at no less than 5 years,
Connor said, and grinned at me from the double doors. He pulled his phone out of his pocket.
All I have to do is make the call. I was told there are no second chances, so you can't stupid your way out of this one.
He thumbed the phone and put it to his ear.
I'm coming, Dick,
I yelled and stomped over to him.
Gonna move or what?
He ended the call, put the phone in his pocket, and held one of the doors open for me. I stepped into the morgue, and my life changed forever.
7879710.
I mumble as I enter the numbers into the keypad over and over and over. It still doesn't do a damn thing. I feel like I could pound the world into pieces. At the very least, I could pound every goddamn mug into 1,000,000 pieces. Then it hits me. Pound! Now, the old woman didn't say anything about the pound sign, but then she wasn't exactly all there when I questioned her, so I don't totally blame her if something important was left out. I blame her about 70%, sure, just not 100%. 7879710, pound. A light flashes green on the keypad, and I hear a loud click. And, once again, nothing happens. There's no little door that swings out from inside the cupboard. No panel moves aside, just a very loud click from somewhere in the kitchen. I must have done it wrong. 7879710, pound. A loud click. but I don't know from where. What? The old bitch couldn't have told me there was more to this than just the goddamn code? She couldn't have clued me in on what happens after I hear the click? Dumb old broad. I'm glad she's dead. 7'8", 7'9", 7'10" Click. Nope. Still can't tell where it's coming from. I swear, when I get back to the morgue, I'm gonna wring that bitch's neck. Not that it'd do much good.
It's a slow night,
Connor says, pointing to the 4 empty metal tables in the morgue.
No one has come in yet.
He walked past the tables to the far wall, where there were 3 rows of 4 lockers. And not like the lockers in the restroom. Nope. These had doors that were about 3 feet square with heavy-duty handles on them. Kinda like handles to walk-in coolers at restaurants. I worked at McDonald's for a week and a half, so I know what a restaurant walk-in cooler handle looks like. Okay, I lied. I only worked there for 3 days before I had a disagreement with the manager over how much food I was allowed to eat during my break and how much food I was allowed to take home at night. Turns out it's 0, which, to this day, seems unreasonable to me. Connor grabbed one of those handles and pulled the door open. A long metal drawer slid out automatically, and I found myself staring at a naked man. Most of his right leg was gone, and he had this huge Y scar on his chest and belly.
Chainsaw accident,
Connor said.
We had to do an autopsy for insurance purposes. Looks like he was high on meth when he decided to cut down his neighbor's tree. We've all been there.
I said and laughed.
Have we?
Connor asked with a sneer.
I think we have, Ragman,
I said. He frowned, but didn't say anything. Then he waved me over. I didn't budge. He waved harder. I didn't budge harder.
Get your fucking ass over here so I can show you something,
he said. His hand hovered close to his pocket where his phone was.
Fine,
I said, and took 3 steps closer. He growled, so I took 3 more steps.
See this tag?
He asked, and pointed to the tag on the guy's only remaining big toe.
This is an intake tag. When a body comes into the morgue, we take down the information from the paramedics and then write it on a tag like this. We do this first before we do anything else. Do you know why? Because he can't write it himself?
I asked.
No,
Connor said in a more irritated tone.
Because if things get chaotic, we need to make sure there's no mix-ups with the bodies. Identification is our first priority. So we fill out the tag, place it on his or her toe, then we start filling out the rest of the intake forms. How many forms are there?
I asked.
A few,
he said, and shoved the drawer back into the locker, then closed the door.
I'll show you.
And he did. He showed me all 5 of the forms I'd have to fill out every single time a body came in. I'd dropped out of high school to avoid paperwork bullshit like that, and there I was, filling out forms like some office drone. I mean, sure, the office was a morgue, and there were dead people everywhere, but you get what I'm saying, right? By the time it was midnight, I'd practiced filling out toe tags and forms on the morgue's one computer for nearly 3 hours straight. I was exhausted and ready for a break.
What time is lunch, or whatever you call it here?
I asked. Connor laughed as he hesitated by the restroom door.
Lunch is whenever you want,
he said, then disappeared inside the restroom. When he came out, he was dressed in his regular clothes, his car keys in his hand.
I'll be back before your shift is over,
he said.
If anyone comes by, which they won't, and asks you where I am, you just say I'm dealing with a bad burrito, find out what they want, and tell them you'll give me the message. Okay,
I said.
If a body comes in, tell them the same thing and do exactly what I just showed you,
he continued.
Can you do that? Toe tag first,
I said, and gave him a thumbs up. Then I smiled and held up my hand higher.
Huh. The thumb is just the hand's big toe. Jesus fucking Christ,
Connor said and left.
Bye,
I said, and he flipped me off as he opened the door to the stairwell. I waited about 15 minutes to make sure he was really gone. Then I got to work. The morgue wasn't exactly a hospital, but it still had plenty of expensive-looking shit that I knew I could get good prices on. So I spent the next hour taking inventory of everything that I could possibly get away with hawking, which wasn't much, really. There wasn't jack shit in the way of supplies out by the desk. Trust me, I checked. So my eyes kept wandering to the double doors. That's where all the magic happened, so that's probably where all the expensive equipment was. But that meant going into a room where dead bodies were being stored like sides of beef. Very comfortable sides of beef in their own beds. Or, really, they were more like those Japanese travelers who have to stay in coffin hotels. You know, the kind where all they get is like a tube for a bed and no actual room? I stalled for another hour before I decided to go for it and see what I could find in there. I pushed open the double doors and the overhead lights automatically flickered to life. It didn't take me long to realize that a morgue isn't exactly filled with riches and shit. There was some machinery, but I didn't know what it did, so I left it alone. There were some crazy-looking steel tools, like these huge scissors that could take my head off, and clamp thingies that probably could hold a house together in a hurricane. But Norris at the pawn shop wasn't going to touch any of it. It wouldn't exactly take the sheriff long to connect the dots about where the tools came from when those things showed up on the wall behind the pawn shop's register. So, stealing shit was a no-go. At least I killed some more time. Just as I was pushing the double doors open to leave, I heard something that made me shiver.
Hello?
I called when I turned around to face the lockers.
Is someone in here?
It was a stupid question, I know, but I wasn't sure what else to say. I could have sworn I heard something. Kinda like a person shifting in bed. Except if the bed was made of stainless steel, and the person was a corpse. I waited, but the noise didn't repeat itself, so I left and went to sit back down at the desk. It was probably 4 a.m. when the hand grabbed my shoulder and I screamed.
Calm your shit down,
Connor said, giving me a shove.
and get out of my chair. Huh? What?
I asked as I tried to shake the sleep from my head.
When did you get back? Just now, moron.
Connor said and gave me another shove.
Move. My legs are asleep,
I said.
Give me a second. Get up or I get you up.
Connor said and cracked his knuckles.
Jeez, man, chill,
I said, and somehow managed to get myself up out of the chair without falling over. I did stumble a little and grab onto Connor's arm to keep my balance. He smelled like discount whiskey, discount cigarettes, and discount sex.
You've been having fun,
I said as he shoved me aside and sat down.
Fuck off,
Connor said, and pulled his phone from his pocket as he kicked his feet up on the desk.
Go sit your ass down over there.
He nodded at a row of chairs that must be for people waiting to identify a body or something. I shrugged and went and sat down, crossing my arms over my chest as I slouched in the chair. Then I glanced at the double doors.
You ever hear anything when you're in here?
I asked Connor. He ignored me and kept scrolling on his phone.
Because I was in there earlier. I swear I heard something move in one of the lockers,
I continued.
You didn't hear anything,
Connor said without looking at me.
No, I think I did,
I said. He glanced up from his phone and fixed me with a cold, hard stare.
Listen up, because I'll only say this once,
he said, then paused a really long time. I think he was going for dramatic effect. It may have been dramatic coming from anyone else, but coming from Connor, it was just him being a dick.
You gotta actually say it, man,
I said.
Working the night shift can be a bitch,
Connor said.
You get tired, you get bored. Your mind starts filling in the gaps. You think you hear shit, but you aren't hearing anything. It's all in your imagination.
I watched him for a second, then shook my head.
What aren't you telling me?
I asked. A look of surprise fell across Connor's face. Then he grinned and went back to looking at his phone.
You know what? I tried.
Connor said.
You can hear whatever and believe whatever you want. Doesn't matter much to me. This is my last night shift. I'm sorry, what the fuck now?
I asked and sat up straight.
How is this your last night shift?
Connor frowned and scrunched up his face as he studied me. Then he shook his head as if I was the saddest sack of shit he'd ever seen.
Do you think it takes 2 people to do this job?
He asked.
Well, no, but
I just sort of left that but hanging there.
I'm moving to the day shift now that Berger is retired,
Connor said.
That's why you got assigned the night shift. There's a vacancy. But I'm not trained!
I exclaimed in a voice an octave higher than I would have liked.
Do you know what to do when a body comes in?
Connor asked.
Toe tag then forms,
I said.
You're trained,
he responded.
I left you alone all by your little self tonight, and you did fine. You'll do fine by yourself tomorrow night, and all the nights after that. But what if something goes wrong?
I asked.
What's going to go wrong?
Connor replied, pointing at the double doors.
They're already dead. Yeah, but if you aren't,
I started to say.
You want training? Okay, here is some training,
Connor said as he yanked his feet off the desk and stood up.
You ready? Yeah, sure,
I said and stood up with him. He walked us over to a single door and opened it. I already knew what was in there because I'd searched the place. Cleaning supplies. Connor threw a mop at me, then kicked the mop bucket in my direction. It rolled on wobbly wheels out of the locker and slowly collided with the opposite wall.
Do you know how to mop a floor?
He asked.
Yeah, I know how to mop a floor,
I said. I did. I've had a lot of experience mopping floors.
Great,
Connor said and pointed at the double doors.
Go mop. In there. Once you are finished, then you are fully trained.
I glared at him, but he didn't care. He returned to the desk, leaving me standing there with a mop in my hand.
There's a mop sink in there,
Connor said, pulling his phone back out.
Fill, mop, rinse, repeat. Got it?
How often do I mop? I asked, gripping the handle tight. I so wanted to break the mop over his head.
Is there a schedule? Yeah, it's called every single night,
Connor said.
Now leave me alone and go mop, Petey boy. I want that floor in there to sparkle for our guests.
Fucker, I mumbled under my breath as I fetched the mop bucket, shoved the mop into it, and rolled it over to the double doors. A shiver ran up and down my spine as I leaned my shoulder against the double doors and pushed them open. So, I've got a system, and I'm a little closer to figuring out where the click is coming from. All I have to do is punch in the code, then shove myself off the counter real fast and stand very still when I land. I've heard the click several times, and I know it's coming from the general area of the pantry. If you can call it a pantry. I've been in mini-marts that are less stocked than this pantry is. One more time, I say. Then I punch in the code, shove off the counter, land like a fucking cat on the floor, and listen. Click. 100% the pantry. For the millionth time, I walk into the pantry and start searching the walls. I have to admit, I've been lazy and haven't taken all the groceries off the shelves yet. There are just so many. But this time I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go the extra mile. After all, the old woman said that her treasure was here, and I'm a guy who likes treasure. As I yank boxes of dried pasta and cans of tomato sauce from the shelves, I think about what the treasure might be. Gold? Maybe jewelry? Possibly really valuable paintings or one of those Ming vases? Who knows? What I do know is this chick was loaded. So if she says there's treasure, then it has to be some seriously valuable shit. With the shelves finally empty, I slowly run my fingers along the back walls. I test every shelf to see if maybe it's loose. I knock and knock, trying to hear something hollow behind the walls. But after 15 minutes of searching, I get frustrated and shove my fists against my temples to try to ward off the headache that's building. Okay, it was more like 5 minutes of searching, but still. After I lower my fists, I just stand there and stare at all the food at my feet. Then I see a box of mac and cheese. The good kind, with the squeezy cheese that comes out of a silver packet. Seeing that box of mac and cheese makes me think about how the timer on my stove is broken, so I never know exactly how long to boil the noodles. A lot of times, I'll just count off the minutes in my head. Except, I always get lost and forget how many minutes I've counted. Maybe I lost track of whether I unlocked or locked whatever the keypad is connected to. I mean, it's possible, right? I kick my way through the groceries and back into the kitchen. I climb that stupid counter and I key in the code. I hear the click. Then I hurry my ass back into the pantry and start my search again. This time, I find it, kinda on accident. As I'm looking for something, anything, I turn too fast and trip over a box of cereal. Trying to get my balance, I step to the side and slip on a can of cream of mushroom soup. Then as I'm falling backward, my hand shoots out and I grab hold of the shelves on the back wall. The shelves and the wall move a little as my weight yanks on them. I still fall on my ass though, and land directly onto a big bag of white rice. The bag pops, rice flies everywhere, but I don't care. All I care about is that the back shelves are now about an inch away from the wall. I'm staring at the gap right now. Carefully, so I don't have another grocery mishap, I get to my feet and inspect the gap. There's just enough room to fit my fingers through, so I do. Then I pull. It doesn't move. I pull again. It's stuck. I can't get it open and it's about to drive me crazy. I take a step back and almost fall on my ass again. Then I realize there's so much shit on the floor that I'll never get the shelves to move. I could say I carefully remove all the groceries from the pantry, but that's a lie. Instead, I open the pantry door wide and just start flinging shit out into the kitchen until the pantry's floor is clear enough for me to try again. With my fingers in the gap, I brace my feet and pull hard. Then I go flying back as the entire wall swivels out to reveal a fucking door with a keypad.
Are you shitting me?
I snarl. After dumping the mop water a third time, I finally finished cleaning the morgue's floor. That was one dirty floor. I doubt Connor had mopped it in weeks. Gross. I shut the water off, turned the bucket upside down, and let it drain in the mop sink just inside and to the left of the double doors. Then I stretched and reached over to push the doors open. That's when I heard the noise again and froze. It was hard to tell exactly where the noise came from, but considering I could see everything in the room, there were really only a few options. The drawers.
Hey, Connor?
I called. No answer.
Dude!
I shouted. Still no answer. I took a super fast look through one of the windows in the double doors and saw that the desk was unoccupied.
Connor!
I yelled again. No response at all. The noise came again, and I almost lost my shit. Then after a few seconds, I laughed. What the hell was I thinking? That a body had come back to life? That's a bit of a stretch, even for me. The noise I heard was probably a vent or something. Yeah, a vent. The morgue had all kinds of vents. Vents make noise when the air turns off and on. Except I knew it wasn't. Because I heard it again, and it was no vent. It sounded like whispering. No way. It couldn't be whispering. I glanced back out of the door's window, and still no Connor. He was probably taking a wicked shit after drinking all that cheap whiskey. The sound stopped.
Fuck this.
I said and shoved through the doors.
Connor! What?
Connor yelled when he came out of the restroom.
What are you shouting about? I heard something in there.
I said.
I know it. So what?
Connor asked and sat back down at the desk.
So what?
I responded and pointed at the double doors.
I've only been doing this job for a few hours, but I'm pretty fucking sure you shouldn't hear noises coming from the drawers in there.
Connor shrugged. I stared at him. After a few seconds, he looked over at me and sighed. he said as he stood up.
Let's go have a look. What?
I asked as he moved past me and went to the double doors.
What kind of look? You said that there was a noise coming from the drawers,
Connor said.
So let's open the drawers.
He slipped into the morgue, leaving me alone by the desk.
Come on!
He yelled. I hesitated, then took a deep breath and followed him in. Connor already had half the drawers open. Bodies of various sizes, shapes, genders, and ages all stared up blankly at the ceiling lights. It wasn't a pretty sight. Although, I did get to see some boobies that would have been nice if they weren't, dead.
Which one was whispering?
Connor asked as he finished pulling out all the drawers. He held his arms out and looked from drawer to drawer to drawer.
Is it that one? The little girl who was hit by a car? I don't know,
I said.
Or him?
Connor asked and pointed at an old man who was missing his right ear.
Did you ever meet Mr. Lawrence? The old guy who ran the newsstand? What's a newsstand?
I asked.
Is that like one of those stands for your phone?
Connor blinked at me, then shook his head.
You're an idiot,
he said and started to leave. But something rattled in my brain, then finally settled down. I grabbed his arm as he was about to pass me.
Hold on,
I said as he tried to get free of my hand. I gripped harder.
What did you say? I asked if you knew who Mr. Lawrence was,
he said.
Which you obviously don't, since you think a newsstand is what you put a phone on to read the news. Makes sense,
I said.
But that's not what I mean. Before that, what did you say? I don't know, Pete,
Connor said and jerked his arm away.
Leave me alone, okay?
No, I said and followed him out as he pushed through the doors.
You asked me which one was whispering. Okay, so what?
Connor said and shrugged. He was about to sit back down at the desk when I said,
I didn't mention whispering. I said I heard a noise.
Connor froze halfway to sitting. Then he sat down quickly.
No, I didn't,
he said. Before he could get his phone out, I walked over to that desk and smacked him upside the head.
Hey!
He yelled, putting a palm to the spot where I whacked him.
What the fuck? You asked me which one was whispering,
I said and clenched a fist.
I heard you say it. Deny it again, and I'll beat the living shit out of you.
Connor didn't say anything. He sat there for a long while, then shook his head.
You know what? Fuck it,
he said, and turned in his seat to face me.
Sit your ass down and I'll tell you all about it. All about what?
I asked.
The whispering,
he said.
You're gonna get the whole story.
£7879,710. The code does not work on the hidden door. Why not? Huh? Why? The code worked on the pantry wall. The code even worked on the security system so I can get inside the house. Shouldn't the code work on the damn hidden door too?
Motherfucker!
I shout and punch the hidden door.
Ow!
I shake my fist a few times as the pain subsides, then walk out of the pantry and start to pace back and forth in the kitchen.
Think, Pete,
I say to myself.
The code opens the wall. That's all good. But now you need a code for the door. Except you don't have a code for the door. You've spent too much time here already. You're on the clock, Pete. Someone could come by the morgue and see you weren't there. Then what? Prison. That's what.
I keep pacing and talking. But nothing gets sorted out. I'm so close to some old bitch's treasure, whatever it is. So close. All I have to do is get through that hidden door. All I have to do is figure out the code. Or I can break through the door. There's always that. The problem with that is breaking shit makes noise. A lot of noise. Noise that neighbors might hear, especially in a neighborhood like this. So no breaking through. It's all ridiculous, all of it. What am I even doing here? The reality of my situation hits me fast and hits me hard. I look around the kitchen. Mugs everywhere. A broken bowl on the ground that I never did clean up. A pantry door wide open and all the groceries piled up on the floor outside it. A pantry wall pulled back to reveal a hidden door. And I'm not even wearing gloves.
Shit,
I say and try not to panic. Even if I give up right this fucking second, I can't just leave. My fingerprints are everywhere.
Shit!
I yell. Then I get to work. The first order of business is to find some gloves. I check under the sink. No gloves. I find the nearest bathroom and go through the cupboard under that sink. No gloves. I go upstairs and look in the bathrooms up there. No gloves. And there isn't even jewelry to steal from the bedroom. It's probably behind that fucking hidden door. I make my way downstairs and head out into the garage. There, on some metal shelves, is a pair of gardening gloves. I slip them on, and they are at least 2 sizes too small, but I don't care. I'm not chopping wood. I'm just wiping everything down before I leave. I start with the mugs. One by one, I wipe them down and put them back. Then I wipe the cupboard down. I wipe the counter down. I pick up the broken bowl and wipe that down before throwing it away. Then I turn and look at the pile of groceries outside the pantry.
Son of a bitch.
I say, and step past the groceries and back into the pantry. I start by wiping down the keypad and the hidden door, even though I doubt anyone will find it once I close it up. But tonight, I'm going to be thorough. Once I'm done cleaning the hidden door, I close the wall and wipe that down. Then I wipe down the shelves, all of them. By this point, my fingers feel like swollen little sausages. The gloves are way too small, and I can't feel my left pinky anymore. I take off the gloves and let the circulation flow back into all of my fingers. Once I have a full feeling again, I struggle to slide the gloves on once again and get back to work. I start with cleaning up the rice. It takes forever, but I get every damn grain off the floor. Then, piece by piece, I wipe every single food item down and put it back on the pantry shelves. Of course, I didn't take a picture or anything, so I know for a fact that the groceries aren't where they're supposed to be. But I'm not worried. No one has ever been caught because the strawberry jam was set next to the pasta sauce. I don't think they have. Have they? Shit. With this little bit of paranoia in my head, I leave the pantry and start wiping down every single surface I think I may have touched. I even wipe down surfaces that I know I didn't touch, just in case. Finally done, and depressed as hell that it didn't work out, I leave the kitchen, return the gloves back to the garage, and then head for the back door I came in by. I stop. I'm standing in front of a mirror in the short hallway that leads to the side entrance. In the mirror, the words on my t-shirt are backward. Instead of saying "born to pun," it says, well, that but backward. And that gets me thinking. Nah, no way. Too easy, right? I mean, it couldn't be that simple, could it? My dad would have laughed in my face right then and there if he'd been with me. He would have said,
They can't even call you simple, boy, because simple is too far above your head.
It was a favorite of his, and he made sure I heard it at least once a week. I backtrack to the pantry and glance at all the groceries I just put back. I sigh. Then I go back out to the garage and fetch the gloves. After that, I return to the pantry and start taking off the groceries. At least I only have to take them off the shelves from the back wall and not every damn shelf. Then I have the groceries off and I'm staring at empty shelves and a locked wall.
Damn it!
I shout and leave the pantry. Time to move some glass mugs.
An old Indian burial ground?
I asked as I tried not to laugh.
That's what you're telling me? Hey, laugh all you want,
Connor said.
but it's true. They built the courthouse and jail, the rest of the municipal building, all on ancient burial ground that used to belong to the natives. And that's what you should call it. An indigenous burial ground, not an Indian burial ground. That's just racist. It's just fucking nuts is what it is,
I said, and laughed when I couldn't keep it in anymore.
Dude, you asked me about the whispering and I gave you the answer.
He said, annoyed as shit.
Believe me or not, I do not fucking care. After tonight, the whispering is all your problem, not mine. Whispering from dead people because the morgue is on an Indian burial ground.
I stayed.
Indigenous burial ground, asshole.
Connor said.
Let's not piss off whatever spirits are here by being a racist douchebag, all right? I'd like to live through my last night.
That got my attention.
Can they attack us?
I asked.
Oh, so now you want to believe?
Connor said and chuckled.
Chicken shit. Well, can they?
I cried.
Who? The spirits of the spirits of the natives.
I said.
Can they attack us? They haven't so far.
Connor said.
But then you haven't been working here. Knowing your reputation, Pete, I'd say yes. They will probably attack you. Fuck that.
I said, and yanked my scrub shirt up over my head.
Fuck all of this. I'm not working here a second more.
Connor laughed. Then he saw my face and frowned.
Oh shit, you mean it. Yes, I mean it.
I said and threw my shirt in his face. Then I stormed into the restroom, grabbed my clothes from the locker, and got changed. When I stepped out of the restroom, Connor was standing there with his phone out, so the screen was facing me. His thumb hovered over the call button. The name on the screen was Judge Hortenstein. All of my anger and confusion and, well, fear was put on hold. Practical matters were staring me in the face.
You expect me to work here after you told me that the dead sometimes come back to life and start whispering shit to you?
I asked with my hands on my hips.
I mean, really? Yup, really.
Connor said, and his thumb moved a millimeter closer to the green call button.
I'm being promoted. Tomorrow I start the day shift, the real shift. I'll be tired as fuck, but who cares? I don't have to deal with any of this crap again.
He leaned in and smiled at me.
You get to deal with it. Not if I quit,
I said, but reality was overriding my little tantrum.
I can see in your eyes you aren't going to quit,
Connor said.
Oh, I'll do it,
I said with very little conviction in my voice. Connor licked his lips, then put his phone away.
You know what? This isn't my problem,
he said, returning to the desk.
I'm not sure why I'm bothering.
He sat down and waved a hand at me.
You're already changed, so go ahead and leave. What? So you can call the judge and bust me? No thanks,
I said.
Nope, no calling the judge,
Connor said.
Take the rest of the night off, no penalties. Come back tomorrow night or not. I don't care. If anyone asks why you didn't show up to work, I'll tell them I have no idea. I'm going to stay out of the shit show that's your life, Pete. You are on your own. Fine. Great.
I said and walked toward the stairwell.
Nice working with you. You won't ever see me again. The town's too small, Pete. I'll see you again,
Connor said with a laugh.
Unfortunately. Yeah, well, you won't be seeing me in this morgue again. That's for sure fucking sure,
I said.
Have fun in prison,
Connor called as I entered the stairwell.
I will,
I shouted.
Because I'm never coming back here again.
The door closed behind me, and I smiled at myself because I meant it. That is until I was woken up the next night by a loud pounding on my front door. I opened the door, still rubbing sleep out of my eyes, and was half surprised to see the sheriff standing there.
Are you just now waking up?
He asked me. I'd finished getting the sleep out of my eyes.
Huh? What time is it?
I asked and turned and walked away.
8:30,
the sheriff said and followed me inside. Sheriff Marcus Davis. The man had been sheriff for as long as I could remember. He'd been there when my mom and sisters had died. He'd been there pretty much every time I fucked up and got caught. Which was every time I fucked up, because I always got caught. But that never stopped me.
I need coffee,
I said, and wandered the 6 feet that were between my front door and my kitchen. Trailers aren't very big.
You need to get dressed so you can report to work,
Sheriff Davis said.
Nope,
I said.
Not going back there. And why is that?
He asked me. I ignored his question and started making coffee. It was instant, and I spooned a bunch into a mug, then put that under the tap, which wasn't running because my water had been shut off.
Shit,
I said.
Get dressed, and I'll swing you through Stacy's on the way for a cup of joe,
the sheriff said.
I'll even buy. I said I'm not going back there,
I responded and slammed my mug down on the counter. It cracked up the side, and the two of us watched it break in slow motion as the two halves fell away from each other, dry instant coffee spilling out onto the counter.
Damn,
I said.
Get dressed.
Sheriff Davis said.
You can decide on the way.
Decide what? I asked.
Whether I take you to the morgue or I take you to the prison,
he said and grinned.
I'm good either way.
That's why you're here, I said. Because Connor told you I quit, and now you're making sure he was right so you can finally put me away for good. Nice.
No, I'm here because your cousin called in a favor and asked me to make sure you made it to work on time,
he replied.
You quitting is news to me.
Connor didn't tell you what we talked about last night?
Why would he? What did you talk about?
I debated whether or not to spill the beans and mention the whispering and the indigenous burial ground, but that seemed like a lot of effort without any coffee in my system. Nothing, I finally said, and went back into my small bedroom at the back of the trailer. Let me grab some clothes. I'm gonna shower there. I grabbed my clothes, stuffed them in a backpack, then followed the sheriff to his cruiser. What do you know? The sheriff made good on buying me a cup of coffee. I was sipping that when I walked into the morgue and saw Connor sitting there, smiling at me. He was already dressed back into his regular clothes.
Welcome back,
Connor said and stood up.
And on time. So much for me never seeing you again.
Sheriff and my cousin are conspiring against me, I said, then nodded at the restroom. Do you mind waiting while I shower real fast?
Yes, I do mind,
Connor said and gathered up his stuff.
Good luck tonight. Careful of the whispering.
Not cool, I said as he walked past me and was gone into the stairwell. Then I was all alone and needed a shower. But I was all alone. I went into the restroom and stored my shit in my locker. Then I stood there and stared at the shower for a few seconds. My eyes went to the restroom door, then back to the shower. The idea of showering alone while there might be whispering corpses only a few yards away was not a pleasant thought. Kinda made my butthole pucker a little. The problem was, I stank. And not in an earthy, funky spend-all-weekend at a music festival way. I stank like I was sweating whiskey cheaper than Connor's, which I was. I also stank like I'd maybe eaten 6 Mini-Mart hot dogs on my way home from the morgue last night, which I did. Hell, I'd bet the dead could smell me. I needed that shower. Real fast, I said to myself, then stripped down and hopped into the shower. The water was scalding hot, and I was so happy. You never know how much you miss running water until you don't have it. My head was under the stream of water when I heard the restroom door bang open.
Where the fuck are you?
A woman screamed. Oh shit, they can walk too. Terrified, I pressed myself against the shower wall. The curtain was flung open, and I screamed at the top of my lungs, ready to be murdered by whispering corpses. Except it was Donna Kinner, and she definitely wasn't dead. Hey Donna, I said, my hands in front of my crotch. She reached in and shut off the water.
They told me you were working here now,
she said and stood there with her arms crossed over her chest.
I'd hoped it wasn't true, but I can see it is.
She looked me up and down.
Shower not working at home?
Water got turned off, I said, still standing there, cupping my privates.
I bet it did,
she replied and then turned and walked away.
Get dressed, Pete. We just brought in a bunch of bodies.
What do you mean, a bunch? I asked. There was no answer. I peeked out of the shower and the restroom was empty. I snagged a towel, dried off, hurried to my locker, yanked on a fresh set of scrubs, then I rushed out of the restroom with my shoes and socks in hand. Out in the hallway, Donna and 3 other paramedics were wheeling gurneys through the double doors and into the morgue.
Put some damn shoes on.
A paramedic snapped at me.
You don't want to step in all of this.
He was right. The floor was coated in dirt and blood and other stuff. I quickly put my shoes and socks on, and then followed him and his gurney into the morgue. Donna was in there and moving a messed up body from her gurney to a drawer. She used to be head cheerleader in high school. Now she was wrangling corpses. You just never know where you'll end up in life. or death.
Move!
A paramedic snapped at me, and I jumped to the side of the double doors so yet another gurney could be rolled into the morgue.
Don't you have work to do?
Donna barked at me as she rolled her empty gurney out of the morgue.
Huh?
I said.
Tags!
The shouty paramedic said as he emptied his gurney and turned to leave.
We have a lot more bodies to bring in, so you need to make sure they are tagged and identified. Personal effects are resting on their chests. I think we found all of them, so there shouldn't be any JDs. JDs?
I asked.
John or Jane Does.
He said, then was gone through the double doors.
Oh,
I said, and stared at all the open drawers and the fresh corpses they held. Then I got to work, because if I didn't, I was going to be left alone with all the corpses and my mind reeling. I didn't want that. Tag 'em, bag 'em, let 'em rest. Then go sit at the desk the rest of the night with my fingers in my ears. Melinda Stringer. She was the first tag and set of forms. Then Carl Jackson, followed by Hollis Arnold. Bobby Tinsel. I always liked Bobby. She was cool and would put extra sprinkles on my ice cream when I was a kid. Vinnie McDougal. He was an asshole. Worse than me. Tom Walker, Alice Norris, Carlotta Lucia Gomez. Dang. Carlotta had worked at the mini-mart. She hated my guts, but she never called the cops when she caught me shoplifting. And she always caught me shoplifting. Nancy Frome. Paula Bagliatelli. None of them looked good. Getting caught in a multi-car pileup on the highway is not how I want to go. No fucking way. Some folks were missing a couple of body parts. Some were missing most of their skin. A few had caved-in heads, like that Hollis Arnold guy. So if the paramedics hadn't put his wallet on his chest, I wouldn't have had a clue who he was. Not that I would have known anyway. I had no idea who Hollis Arnold was. Anyway, I had to keep from puking more than a few times. And no, I did not puke on a corpse and shove the drawer into the locker as fast as possible so none of the paramedics could see. That never happened. Never happened.
just one more,
Donna said as she wheeled in the last corpse. I just finished putting Paula's tag on her toe and was pushing the drawer into the locker. I had so much paperwork to do that I was trying not to think about it.
All the drawers are full,
I said to Donna.
1 left over from yesterday and 11 tonight. That's 12 drawers.
She shrugged and pushed the gurney up next to one of the metal tables.
Help me,
She said. I hesitated. She glared.
I said help me, dipshit. I'm not leaving my gurney here. We have to pay for equipment out of our pocket if we lose it. You want me to lift a dead body onto that table?
I asked.
Yeah.
She said. There were about 1 million does implied in that one word. I swallowed hard, then grabbed an end of the sheet and lifted as hard and fast as I could.
Jesus, Pete, chill.
Donna said, almost losing her grip as I let the body fall onto the table.
Show some respect, will ya? That's it?
I asked, wiping my hands on the front of my scrubs over and over.
That's it.
She said, and then took a tablet off her belt and handed it to me.
What's this?
I asked.
You have to sign.
She said and frowned.
Did Connor not tell you that?
I shrugged. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. It wasn't like I'd listened to everything he'd told me.
You sign here, and that says you are taking receipt of all these bodies.
Donna said, pointing at the tablet screen.
And if you could do it this century, that'd be great.
I signed. I didn't read any of it, so I could have just co-signed for Donna's new car as far as I knew. Although she would have quite a shock when they pulled up my credit report. I was the only person I knew with a negative number for a credit score.
See ya, Pete.
Donna said, and left the second my finger stopped signing. That left me alone in a full morgue. I was never so happy to have paperwork to do. I hurried through the double doors and plopped down at the desk. It was tedious. It was hellish. It was quite possibly illegal since cruel and unusual punishment like that was supposed to be unconstitutional. But it kept me busy and kept me from thinking about, well, the whispering. I'd gotten through every single person's information, then came to the last body.
What the?
I mumbled as I read the name. Constance Hortenstein. Judge Hortenstein's wife. I picked up the phone and dialed my cousin.
Jameson call?
A sleepy voice answered. I checked the clock on the computer. It was almost 2 a.m.
Hey, cuz,
I said.
who calls the next of kin?
Huh? What?
My cousin responded. I heard shuffling, then something dropped and clattered.
Shit. Wait. Pete?
Yeah, it's me.
I said.
I've had one hell of a night, man. You won't believe how many bodies are in here right now. And you won't believe who one of them is.
Pete, this is highly inappropriate.
Jameson said.
You aren't supposed to share information like this.
Constance Hortenstein,
I said.
the judge's wife. She's dead, man.
There was silence followed by,
Shit. That's not good. So why are you calling me?
Because I can't call Connor.
I replied.
He's a dick. I just thought you'd know the procedure for contacting the next of kin. Because I really don't want to have to call the judge. No way. That doesn't sound good at all.
Did you log everyone into the system?
He asked.
Yep, just finished that.
I said.
Good. And the sheriff and his deputies are calling family members right now.
Jameson said.
They get alerts from the morgue. People will come by tomorrow to identify the bodies.
I'll be long gone before Judge Hortenstein gets here then.
I said.
Phew.
He's out of town anyway.
Jameson said.
He has an annual hunting retreat he goes on with his old legal pals. It's in the middle of nowhere, so it'll be a day or so before he gets back.
Huh.
I said.
I thought he'd stick around town long enough to see if I fucked up this job.
Really, Pete?
Jameson said with a sigh.
Not everything is about you.
Then he hung up. I held the phone for a minute longer because I thought maybe he'd picked back up. Except that isn't how phones work. I guess they used to be that way back when people had those stupid landlines, but not now. So then why did I still hear a voice? I froze. I stopped breathing. I sat there, pretending to be a statue for a good few minutes as the voice echoed out from the morgue.
My treasures.
The voice said.
Must get my treasures.
Okay, the word treasure is triggering for me. It makes me think of fun in the sun and pirate wenches and lots of rum and far-off islands. You know, good times. And since my little shithole of a town was as far from good times as you can get, hearing someone drone on about their precious treasures was just hurtful. And a little intriguing. So I sucked it up like a buttercup and left that desk. I shoved open the double doors and walked into the morgue. Don't get me wrong, I was scared as shit. My knees were literally knocking together, which is something I thought only happened in cartoons and shit. If one of those drawers had opened up while I was in there, I'd have shit and pissed myself, and then run my nasty, messy ass straight out of that morgue and all the way home. I wouldn't even get in my Impala. I'd just book it on home with shit and piss running down my legs. But a drawer didn't open. Instead, I heard the voice coming from the body on the table. Constance Hortenstein. A very rich old lady was whispering in not a very whispery voice about treasures, and her husband was out of town.
Hello?
I said and moved a step closer to the table.
My treasures.
The voice under the sheet said.
I left my treasures. There's so much there. So much. Exactly how much are we talking?
I asked.
1,000? A few thousand? Treasure until the end of life.
She said.
Treasure forever.
I liked the sound of that. Treasure forever. Yeah, I could do with some treasure forever.
I could look after your treasure for you.
I said and took another step closer.
I just need to know where it is. Home.
She answered.
Your treasure is at home?
I asked, just in case her answer was a fluke.
My treasure is at home.
She said.
In the vault.
Oh shit! Treasure in a vault! Treasure in a vault! Fuck yeah! I took a deep breath and got myself under control.
Okay, your treasure is in the vault.
I said.
At home.
She responded.
Yep, at your home.
I said and got even closer.
Where would I find this vault so I can take care of your treasure? Cupboard, keypad.
She said.
Cupboard and keypad. Good, good.
I said.
What else?
And that started a very lengthy conversation. It wasn't like she told me everything all at once. There was a lot of whining about her treasure and how it needed to be taken care of, which meant a lot of me responding by saying I was more than happy to take care of that treasure if she'd just tell me everything I needed to know. An hour went by the time I had enough written down that I could work with. When I looked at the clock, it was close to 2 a.m. I had 4 hours until I was off shift. Could I make it to the judge's house and find the treasure before I needed to be back for my shift change? It was possible. Very possible. I entered the code backward. 1079787 £. There is a loud click and the door pops open. I grab the edge and swing it all the way out into the pantry. Then I turn and run to the kitchen sink so I can throw up. I didn't think I had anything left in my stomach. Apparently, I was very wrong.
What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck?
I mutter over and over as I wipe my mouth. I hold onto the edge of the sink and grip it so hard all of my knuckles crack. Then I spin around and rest my back against the sink while I try to figure out what I just saw.
You have to be shitting me.
I say as I pull enough courage out of my ass to go back to the pantry and the hidden room beyond.
Jesus Christ.
I say as I study the room. And that's what it is. It's a room, not a vault. Although, the room does have a lot of vault qualities. I study the door, and it's a foot thick with steel bars embedded in it like a damn bank vault. So, yes, you can say vault and not be wrong. Inside are so many different things I don't understand. Metal things, sharp things, wooden things, pointy things, things with straps and chains, things with spikes and needles, things with drains cut into them. And those are just the furnishings. There are a lot of, other things. Other things that I guess are a little more fleshy. The fleshy things must be Mrs. Hortenstein's treasures. That's my guess. I turn away, keep the gorge down, and silently scream as hard as I can. When you grow up in a shithole like I did, you know how to scream at the top of your lungs without making a sound. I finish silent screaming, then walk out into the kitchen and grab a beer from the fridge. I pop it and sit down at the island to think. The clock on the microwave says 4:30. I still have time. 5 beers later, 7 beers later, I have an idea. Fishing my phone from my pocket, I return to the pantry and Mrs. Hortenstein's vault and her treasure. By the time I'm finished, I have pictures of every single thing, metal, wood, or flesh, in that room. Every angle and perspective is covered. There is no doubt about what is in the pictures. I close the hidden door, make sure it shuts tight, enter the code to lock it, then pull all the groceries back on the shelves. When I pull my 8th, it's my 10th. Jeez. When I pull my 10th beer from the fridge, I realize that I was in the room for an hour. It's 5:30. I have 30 minutes to get back to the morgue. Fuck! I run from the house and almost forget to set the security alarm. I do that, then run my ass to my car. My keys fall between my fingers as I try to unlock the piece of shit Impala. Then I'm in and cranking, starting the car. The engine turns over and I race away from that mansion as fast as I can. The streets fly by and I stare at the clock on my dash. It's an hour and 53 minutes off, so I do some quick math. I have 15 minutes to get back. My foot presses down even harder on the gas pedal, and my poor piece of crap Impala lurches forward. That's when I see 2 sets of lights. The stoplight in front of me, which is very red, and the cop lights behind me, which are very red and blue. I have time to stop, but seeing the cop lights in my rearview mirror distracts the shit out of me, and I blow that red light without even breathing on my brakes. Damn. There is a choice for me to make this very second. I can keep driving, or I can stop. It's not a hard choice, yet I seem to be having a hard time making it.
Pull over!
A voice booms from the cop's loudspeaker. Deputy Mullins. I'd know that voice anywhere. She's cute. Maybe I can talk my way out of this. Turns out, I cannot. In minutes, I'm in the back of her cruiser and on my way to jail. Again. They process me for drunk driving, which is a stretch. I only had 10. Okay, I had 13 beers. So, they nail me for drunk driving and for running a red light and for evading a police officer. The last charge I object to because I didn't evade Deputy Mullins. I was just having a hard time coming to a decision right away. A pause to think isn't evading. I'll have to ask my cousin if that's a valid defense. Speaking of, Jameson comes around at about lunchtime.
What the shit, Pete?
He asks me as he stands outside my cell.
You were supposed to be at work, in the morgue, by court order. Why were you driving around town? And in an area of town you should never be driving through. At 5:45 and shit-faced? I needed to run an errand,
I answer, which is true in a way.
Well, that errand is going to cost you about 10 years of your life, if you are lucky,
Jameson says and rubs his face.
It's also going to mean you're in this cell for a few days. A few days? Why so long?
I ask.
Because Judge Hortenstein is dealing with the death of his wife,
Jameson says.
You remember her, right? Yeah, so he's on his way back, and the court will be closed until he's ready to pick up the gavel. And that'll take days?
I ask.
Normally, a temp judge would be brought in to oversee court cases while the judge is on leave,
Jameson says and frowns.
But Judge Hortenstein has refused outside help and says he'll be back on the bench soon.
I begin to complain again, and then it hits me. My phone. And what's on it?
That's good,
I say.
I can wait for old Horty to get back. Don't call him that,
Jameson says.
And you don't have a choice. You have to wait. Why would that be good?
I shrug.
Reasons,
I say. Jameson shakes his head.
Whatever,
he says, then walks off.
I'll be back when your court appearance is scheduled. See you, cuz.
I call after him. He doesn't respond. It is 6 days before I'm walked into Judge Hortenstein's courtroom.
Did you get it?
I ask Jameson as the deputy shoves me into my seat next to my cousin.
Your phone? Yeah.
Jameson says, then stands up as the judge walks into the courtroom and sits down at his bench. There's a lot of hear ye's and orders and honorables and all that courtroom shit. Then Judge Hortenstein calls my name and glares down at me from the bench.
Before we get started, Your Honor, may I have a word in private?
I ask. The judge blinks at me, then looks at my cousin.
Counselor, did your client just ask to speak to me in private?
The judge asks. Jameson only shrugs, his eyes wide and confused.
It'll only take a minute,
I say.
It'll take less than that because there's no way I'll...
The judge starts to say.
I'd like to speak to you about your wife's treasures,
I say. I put my hand out to my cousin. Nothing happens.
My phone,
I whisper. He slowly places it in my hand.
Mr. Harmon,
Judge Hortenstein says.
You are treading on thin ice. I can explain it all, Your Honor,
I say and hold up my phone. No one in the courtroom knows where to look. Some are staring at the judge. Some are staring at me. Some are staring at their feet. My eyes are on the judge the entire time, so I see the change in his eyes immediately.
5 minutes,
Judge Hortenstein says and stands up. He steps down, whispers something to the bailiff, then walks through the door next to his bench and is lost from sight. The bailiff comes over to me and yanks me up onto my feet. My cousin stands too.
Just him,
The bailiff says.
No counsel. It's cool, I got this.
I say to Jameson before he can protest.
No, you don't,
He says, but doesn't argue and lets the bailiff walk me past the bench and into the judge's private chambers. I'm shoved into a chair in front of the judge's desk. As soon as the bailiff leaves and the door closes, I set my phone on the desk and slide it across.
The code is 6969,
I say. The judge groans.
Check the photos folder.
The judge groans again, enters my code, then swipes to the photos. The second he sees the first one, I know I have him.
I looked it up before I left, and that one is called a blood eagle, right?
I ask as I lean back in my chair. Its leather and plush are very nice.
You open the back and yank out the lungs, then set them up on the dude's shoulders. Pretty grisly. You were in my house,
The judge says.
I knew someone had been in there. The cans of peaches were next to the boxes of tea. Constance would never have allowed that to happen. Yep, I was in there all right,
I say and wave at him.
Keep scrolling.
He does. He studies every single photo carefully. By the time he's done, I can tell I have either made the best decision of my life or the worst decision of my life.
Your wife had some interesting treasures,
I say.
young men especially. And apparently, those young men went through a lot of torture in hell. She was troubled,
The judge whispers.
No shit,
I say.
She kept the blood, man. They were like barrels of it in there.
The judge says nothing.
And the bulletin board with all the dicks stapled to it?
I say and shake my head.
Dude, your lady was more than troubled. She was downright Hannibal freaky. She never ate them.
The judge snaps, then gets himself under control.
She was nothing like Hannibal.
I let him have his moment and just sit there, all cool as a cucumber. Finally, he asks,
What do you want, Peter?
Bingo. I knew this was going to pay off.
I want all the charges dropped, including the llamas.
I say.
I want a clean record and full immunity. Immunity? Immunity from what?
He asks, his face drained of all blood. The guy really looks old now.
Whatever I need immunity from,
I say and shrug.
I have plans. Plans.
He responds with a sad laugh.
Blackmail is not plans, Peter. It's a felony. So is aiding and abetting a fucking serial killer, man.
I say.
Unless you weren't just abetting. Did you get freaky with your lady too? I would never,
He says and glares at me.
Cool.
I say.
Then let's work a deal. I get a clean record, full immunity, and keep my job at the morgue.
That confuses the shit out of him, and I laugh as I stand up.
Why keep the job?
He asks.
Turns out, the dead have shit to say.
I reply. I reach across the desk and pluck my phone from his hands.
I'm hoping the next lead I get is a little less bloody.
I continue.
But then, I guess this worked out just fine. Who knows what I can learn when the dead start whispering again?
The fact he doesn't ask me what that means tells me he knows all about the native burial ground thing. I laugh at the look on his face, walk over to the door, and knock. The bailiff peeks inside and then stares at me.
He's free to go, Tully,
The judge says.
Let the prosecutor know. Let his counsel know. And tell the sheriff we're having lunch later to discuss Mr. Harmon's arrangement. Thanks, Judge.
I say, then smile at the bailiff.
Gonna move or what, Tully?
He does, and I walk out of the judge's private chambers, walk past the bench, and walk out of that courtroom without another word. Then a bunch of hands grab me and take me back to the jail for processing, because apparently you can't just make a grand exit from a courtroom. Damn bureaucracy. Oh well, I still have time to go home and sleep a couple of hours before my shift starts. I wonder what the dead will have to say tonight. I hope it's something about cash or gold this time. I'm in the mood for a much better treasure I can find. Because I've had my fill of torture chambers, thank you. Thanks for listening. If you enjoy these stories, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and check out some more of my episodes here.